When you when you look at building a franchise, there are certain things that are in place. So you have to purchase the licensing fee, and then you're given a instruction manual on how to open up and operate the business. There are guidelines that you have to follow in order to stay in good standing with the franchisor, as you are the franchisee. And so we were talking about the fact that people feel that if I put down $100,000 or more, it's about the average cost for a franchise, that I should be able to just flip a switch and customers are going to come in and I'm going to have my phone ringing and I'm going to sell whatever it is I'm selling. So if it's a Subway franchise, if it's a Fast Signs franchise or what have you, that's the thinking of a lot of people. They think because I'm putting such a significant investment down, it should automatically generate a return. And that is not how business works. That's like me showing up at a university and saying, well, I'm spending $85,000 on my education. So therefore, when I get my degree, I expect jobs to just start dropping in my lap and interviews coming my way with offers. That's not how it works either. You have to have a mindset of I'm going to become an expert in this space, and I'm going to do so by complete immersion. Because when you are completely immersed, it changes your ability to make better decisions and your mindset of what's required to be successful, instead of you relying on your thinking to create the success. You see, if I'm talking to you and you're a brand new person in business or you're relatively new, well, if you're relatively new, it tells me and it tells you that your thinking prior to starting business was completely different. Otherwise, you wouldn't be new. Otherwise, you would have been an entrepreneur your whole life. So if you're new to the space, then you have to commit to be an expert and to immerse yourself in that space by what? Number one, identifying other individuals who are incredibly successful entrepreneurs. So one of the first things that I did when I first got into the space of entrepreneurialism was to identify individuals who were earning at least $1 million a year consistently in business, because I knew that those numbers would bear themselves out. You don't make $1 million a year, year over year over year, consistently without being fully immersed in what's required to be a successful entrepreneur. I wasn't looking for the latest easy fad or my 5 simple steps to becoming a millionaire, and that person only did something one time. That's not what I was looking for. I was looking for people that had a consistent track record over a long period of time, year over year over year, of producing high level results. And then that was the starting place for my conversation and my commitment to just put myself around them and their thinking so that I could learn faster. You can learn faster by immersing yourself in an environment of eagles, not pigeons. And so getting back to that initial conversation that I was having with my friend about franchisees, they think, well, I put down this money, everything should just work. And no, I'm following the manual, I'm doing what the manual says, but I'm still not getting customers. It's still slow. You know how long it's been? It's been 2.5 years. I still haven't broken even yet. What's wrong with this model? It must not work. And when people realize, oh, number one, I actually have to put in real work. Number two, I'm going to be severely overworked and underpaid in the beginning because that's what's required to get my business up off the ground. When they start to understand that, then they start thinking about that steady paycheck. Then they start thinking about going back to what they were because it's comfortable, it's familiar. Well, at least I can have a job and make my little $85,000 or $125,000 a year, and I can consistently do that instead of me having to do everything. That's too much of a headache. And so they start to negotiate with their dreams. They start to downsize their dream because they realize, oh, you mean I can't get something for nothing? Oh, I can't just, expect people to come into my doors with little to no effort. Well, that's not entrepreneurialism. Okay, that's being an employee. And this is why employees are overworked and underpaid, because they've made a deal with themselves. They said, hey, listen, in exchange for me not having to really think, not having to be creative, not having to be resourceful, in exchange for me not having to learn new skills and be in the uncomfortable growth zone, I will give you my life and my life energy in exchange for a dollar amount. And I'm going to allow you to set the dollar amount, and I'll just take it. So if you're going to pay me 85,000 a year, 125,000 a year, and I get benefits and I have some level of quote unquote security, even though I know you can lay me off at any time, even though I know I'm going to be overworked and underpaid, even though I know there's a good chance I might even be underappreciated or even maybe disrespected, even though I know I'm not going to get raises consistently that are keeping up with inflation, even though I know I'm trading in my dreams because this job will never, ever, ever, ever get me to my dream, I'm going to resign myself to that because it's comfortable. Well, that's the deal, right? So this is why when people complain to me about their jobs, they complain to me about their income, they want to complain about prices like gas prices or grocery prices. Like, what are you talking about? Like, just make more money. What do you mean? Like, make more money. I've never ever heard a multimillionaire complain about gas prices. I've never heard a multimillionaire complain about going to the grocery store. They don't even think about it. They're thinking about bigger things, bigger, more important, more significant things, because they have the bandwidth to think about more important things, because money is not top of mind, because they've already taken care of the money part, because they're an entrepreneur, because they're a business owner. So for me, I was never willing ever to engage in that negotiation or that conversation. I was never willing to sell my body, my life energy, my soul for a paycheck. I've never ever desired to be a paycheck player. I've never wanted to be a paycheck player. I wanted to go out and focus on profits, not wages, profits. There's a phrase called slave wages. There's a reason people joke about being slaves when they're on their job, because someone is determining when you're supposed to eat. Like, you have to go to eat at this time. Well, what if I don't want to eat at that time? Like, you got to wake up at this time, you got to go on vacation at this time, and you're only going to get this many days for vacation, and you can only go certain places because our paycheck is not going to allow you to do vacation the way that you want to do it. You got to do it the way that we want you to do it, because this is a paycheck. Like, I've never ever wanted to do that. So I understood the law of sowing and reaping. I would much rather plant seeds and grow trees that can feed not just myself, but my family, my children, and then eventually their children for generations, based on the decisions I'm making now, the sacrifices I'm making now, the work that I'm putting in now, the vehicle that I've selected to build that. I'd rather do all of that work and pay the price up front so that we can reap the dividends later, and that my children understand the same principles so that they will understand the importance of sowing and reaping, planting seeds, growing trees, so that they can continue that. There's a reason why certain families pass wealth on from one family generation to the next. There's certain family names that you're familiar with because of their generational wealth and the maintaining of that generational wealth, because of the way that they think, the way that they understand money, the way they understand business and ownership. That's all connected. You don't remember people that work jobs. You know how many people that get up early and they stay late on their jobs, and they sacrifice time away from their families. They sacrifice time missing games and watching their kids grow up and missing the first steps. And these people give everything to their job because they have a standard of excellence in what they do. And that's fantastic. You should never not prosper where you're planted. But because individuals like this give everything to a job, and they put all of their heart and soul and love into a job that would never give them the same in return, well, that person works themselves into a disability, a heart attack, a stroke, because they're neglecting their health, they're neglecting their fitness because they're putting everything into the job. And as soon as that person becomes disabled and they're no longer able to work, perhaps the job has some health care, some medical care. They will provide and protect them for a couple of months. Eventually that runs out. Eventually that person can't return to the job at the same level they were able to as when they left, because they are now disabled. And you know what that job does next? They replace them. The job is not going to stop churning because that person has worked themselves into a disability, or even worse, an early grave. Now that family is without that person. They don't have the same version of that person because they worked themselves into an early grave or they're permanently disabled. They can't take all that they put into the job and pass it on to next in line in the family. The wife can't take over the job. You can't pass it on to the kids. The kid that just graduated, they can't take over the job and the income that was built up over 15, 20-year career, whatever it is. There's no transference of that. So they have little to nothing to show for it. I'll never forget this conversation with a gentleman who worked for United Airlines. And this is when they were Continental. And when United purchased Continental Airlines, he had 24 years with Continental Airlines. And when they bought Continental, part of the agreement was the dissolution of the pension that had been built up for the employees. This man's pension evaporated overnight. 24 years. And he did the right thing. He worked really hard. He put money into that pension. And when it came time for him to collect, there was nothing left for him to collect because of the acquisition. Did he have any recourse? No. He said, Ed, I have to start all over again. They stole money from him. They stole that money. But because of the nature of his job and the agreement that he signed on for, he didn't read the small print. He didn't understand this at the time. We can, if required, in order for the viability of the company, not you and your family and your sweat equity, the viability of the company, what's best for the company, in order to do that, we have the option to completely dissolve your pension if it's required. We hope it doesn't get to that, but if it's required, we got to do it. They had to do it. And here he is having hit the reset button. That's not obviously he wasn't the only person adversely affected by that. You see, ladies and gentlemen, if I'm going to become an expert at something, it has to be something that's worth becoming an expert at. So to you, my entrepreneurs, if you're involved in building a business, if you're involved in building a sales team, if you're involved in your efforts paying leveraged benefit over a period of time because of what you're building, that's worth getting good at, because that's something you have 100% control over. That's based on your effort and your ability to immerse yourself in that world, to surround yourself with thinking that is outthinking you, with people that are much higher in their leveraged business output and their returns on that output. And you put yourself in that world, you start thinking differently, you start understanding differently, and now the game begins to change. See, me coming out of entertainment, so being in movies and television, that was my first exposure to residual passive income. I didn't know what that was. Never learned about it in school. Now, remember, I got 4 years of undergraduate training. I got 3 years of a master's degree at an Ivy League institution, and in 7 years of comprehensive education at some of the best schools in the world, I never had one class that was a requirement on just financial management, understanding money, passive income, the power of leverage. I never learned anything about any of that. And there's a high 5-figure, for some people, multiple 6-figure price tag on that education, and nobody's teaching us anything about the basic principles of money. What kind of sense does that make? What does that tell you about the inherent built-in flaws in our educational system? So I was immersing myself when I was getting educated in developing certain skills, yes, for sure, but the fundamentals I never got. not one class on principles of success, not one class on personal development, not one class on intestinal fortitude and the importance of mental toughness. None of that. So if you don't have that, if you come from a bubble, if your parents sheltered you growing up, and for the first time you're having to deal with life and circumstances, you're not equipped, and now you got all this student loan debt, why do you think a good number of students are having to move back in with their families after graduating because now they have a degree that's not worth the piece of paper it's printed on because they cannot find a position in that chosen field, where they're saddled with all the student loan debt they can't afford to pay off. They have no other recourse but to move back home. So understanding that this is how it's structurally set up, born to win, programmed to fail. This is why 98% of the population, when they hit retirement, are going to be dead broke, dependent upon family, friends, and the government, and have to continue working to maintain the current lifestyle. And only 2% are going to be financially fit or financially free. So you know what? I was excited, fired up when I learned about entrepreneurialism, because I saw the residual passive income I was earning as a former actor in film and television, voiceovers, commercials. I mean, the income was staggering. It was mind-blowing. I had no idea that I was going to be earning a residual passive income every quarter for the next 25 years. I didn't know that. If I happened to be in a really good movie or a really good show, like we joke, actors out of New York, we would always joke, if you're on Law and Order, any of the Law and Order, CSI, Law and Order Criminal Intent, Law and Order SVU, if you're on any of the Law and Orders, it's like working for the county. Like that's income that's going to be steady, and it's going to be for the rest of your life, because those shows are going to run forever and the reruns are going to run forever. And that is absolutely true. So if you happen to be on a really good show, I happen to luck in to some really popular films that I can't, I have no control over if the movie's going to do well or not. I just happen to luck up into some very big blockbuster movies, a couple of them, and they've paid incredible dividends for years, decades. So I was like, well, how can I do more of that on my own? That's when I learned about entrepreneurialism. That's when I learned about the power of leverage. That's when I learned about building sales teams. And so when I realized that I can create my own residual, I can build my own passive income, and I can increase the number month over month over month over month based on the effort that I put forth, based on my ability to immerse myself in a world of high achievers, in a world of individuals where earning an extra 50 or 60 or 80 or $100,000 a month is normal. When that's normal for them, me being around that changed my whole life, changed my whole thinking. And eventually I started to build that over time, a couple $100 a month, a couple $1,000 a month, 10, 20,000 a month, 30, 40,000 a month. I actually was able to have that trajectory and learn the skills. And then, okay, well, here's what I got to do. I got to identify a vehicle. I have to identify the right structure, the right product, and be the right leader in order to create that, and then share the opportunity with other individuals who want to break out of the matrix, with other individuals who want to break out of that slave mentality of only having a job. I'm not saying jobs are inherently evil. I'm not saying that. A job can be a temporary inconvenience. A job can be a place where you learn a skill. A job can be a place where you cultivate and develop tools. A job can be something that you do because you love it, not because you need it, because you've already built up, or you're in the process of building up a passive income for yourself, so that money's not an issue. Like I'm a teacher, right? So I come from the public school system where I taught in Cleveland City Public Schools and New York City Public Schools, and I enjoy teaching. So now I have the opportunity to teach because I enjoy it, not because I need a paycheck, not because I'm looking for benefits, not because I'm building for retirement. So I'm going to suck it up and deal with these badass kids and come in with bad attitude myself because I got to get this pension, because I got to be here anyway. That, like, I can tell you the conversations that happened on lunch break in the break rooms. It was so uninspiring, so demotivating when I was teaching in the public school system. So Imagine being able to do the things that you love to do a job that you love doing because you just love doing it, not because you're concerned about the money, because you took the time to learn the skills. You understand at the beginning of the 20th century, 90% of the population were entrepreneurs. By the end, it had flipped. 90% of the population were employees. Because of Henry Ford and other owners of his mindset, they created a culture and an indoctrination where people get trained how to go work for somebody else, not to be entrepreneurs. That's why he needed the assembly line. That's why he incentivized people to get married and to have kids, because he knew once you have a wife and kid, I got you. I got you on lock, because now you need the job. You have to have the job, and you're going to take whatever I give you. Now, back in the day, in fairness to Henry Ford, the pay was good. You could build up a career. You could have a 25, 30-year career and retire with a respectable pension. I'm not knocking that, because it was effective. I'm just saying that people stopped learning how to be entrepreneurs. You could still work a job. You could still build up your retirement, but you could still be an entrepreneur. How many people do you all know that work a full-time job, but they own a property and they rent out the property? How many people do you all know that have a full-time job, but they have a home-based business? How many people do you all know that are working their full-time job, they're not happy, but they're building a business and they have an exit strategy? So that's all I'm saying, is be willing to immerse yourself and surround yourself with thinking that's outthinking you. Surround yourself with people that are going somewhere, that want more out of life. Don't hang around paycheck players, because they're not going anywhere. They don't want anything. They literally have downsized their dreams. They put their real goals on the shelf because they don't think they're ever going to get them. Why bother? I'm comfortable. And remember, your comfort zone is your broke zone. Don't hang around people like that. You're not going to grow. Find your uncomfortable growth zone. Find new skills and learn to build a business, because that is something that is worth getting good at. That is something that can feed your families for years and years. And that is something that can get you to $2, $3, $4, $5 million liquid so much faster than a job never could do. So for example, if I spend the next 5 years building a business, and let's say I get my income to $100,000 a month, okay? 5 years, all right? For some of y'all, that's too big of a number. Let's just say it's 10,000 a month, okay? So 5 years, if I earn an extra $10,000 a month on top of my job, well, 5 years from now, I have an extra $120,000 coming in on top of my job. So then what does that look like? Now you have $120,000. If you understand tax laws, you'll take home, 105 of that, and you can invest it, you can grow it, and that gets you to your goals faster. Think about what you're going to need when you do want to start setting yourself and your family up. What is that going to look like? If I have an extra, 20 grand a month that I can just do whatever I want with, then I can decide I can retire or whatever it is. But how do you get to that number? One of the people that I've worked with, and he got me really thinking much differently about this. He said, look, my first goal was to be 10 million liquid. 10 million liquid, that was my first goal. And I watched him go to 10 million liquid. Like, he stacked up his cash, 10 million. He lived like he was broke. He downsized his entire life and focused on building his business, building a sales team, creating leverage, building passive income. And I literally watched him go to 10 million liquid in a very short period of time. So now everything he does is from a space of freedom, stress-free. Well, what do you think that did to me? It rubbed off. I was like, man, I got to find the right vehicle. I got to find the right product. I got to find the right system that I can cultivate, that I can build upon, share, and expand, so that I can emulate that. Because I hang around people who are going somewhere, people that have big goals, people that want big dreams, people that are willing to go out here and put in the work. And so immersing myself in that mindset and that philosophy, continuing to sharpen my skills, continuing to be very mindful of spending time with eagles and not pigeons, change the game. Creates a whole new foundation. Then you learn how to live in your future. You learn how to live with vision, but you're doing the work today that's going to get you there. You're doing the measurable work today. You can't look at my last 7 days and look at my activity and not understand exactly where I'm going. I focus on my numbers because I can grow my numbers. I know my numbers So therefore, I can grow my numbers. If you know your numbers, you can grow your numbers. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the power of immersion. That is the power of measurable progress. And that can change the game for you. And I don't care where you're at in life. You could be 30 years young, 20 years young, 60 years young. Listen, because of health advancements and technology and all of that, if you're 60, you're going to be here for at least another 40 years. The chances are very high. If you're 60, you have at least another 10 to 15 years, maybe even 20 of high productive earning years. I'm watching coaches right now on the sidelines in their late 70s. We got people running for political office in their late 70s and 80s. Like, we understand that the world is changing in terms of being viable and still churning at a high rate in your 70s and 80s. We're seeing that in real time. So we know this. So there's no excuse. There's no reason for you not to hit it out of the park. And in our business and what I do, you can hit it out of the park in 2 to 5 years. In 2 to 5 years, your entire financial life can change forever. So just having that knowledge and knowing if you put yourself around the right people in the right company, you could change the game forever. That's an incredible starting point. Have an awesome and amazing start to your week. Happy Motivate Monday. We're going to keep making it do what it do. We'll see you back here, same time, same station next week. Until then, keep growing 2% Nation.